getting introduced last. They were chanting "duck" at the end of the game. Did you hear that?
Yeah. It was awesome. I kind of figured that they would have me come out last. Before the game, and I mean it was so loud that I don't even think I heard my actual name called. But it was cool. I mean, all the guys were hype in the little tunnel that they made, and I mean, it was definitely a moment I'll never forget.
Everybody, welcome to the Steelers Roundtable. Happy Victory Monday for the Steelers. Players are off today, but there you saw a little behind the scenes of Devlin Hodges getting ready to be introduced, the last player on offense getting that Heinz Field crowd riled up yesterday. He is now 2-0 as a starter. Let's introduce our panel today. Former offensive lineman Tunch Ilkin is here once again. I'm sure he's going to say a lot of nice things about the O-line, even though we'll say some nice things about Benny Snell football as well. Bob Labriola is here to offer his input. I know he wants to talk about the move to Sunday Night Football in Week 15. And Matt Williamson, nice enough once again to join us. Not sure how we roped you into back-to-back weeks, Matt, but thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
All right. You saw some behind the scenes of Duck getting ready to take the field. Let's talk about his performance on the field. As Coach Tomlin said on Tuesday, guys, don't kill us. That was the message. Tunch, what did you take away?
He didn't kill us, but he did kill the Cleveland Browns. And I loved it. Early in the game, Missi, he was throwing a lot of flat passes. He was throwing a lot of screens and a lot of checkdowns. And if I was Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, I would tell my guys, watch the screens, watch the checkdowns, and watch the passes out into the flat and swarm to the ball. And that's what they were doing. As the second quarter started evolving, that's when he started throwing the ball downfield. And, when you stretch, Sid Gilman always said this, when you stretch the field, that is when you open up the intermediate routes. And I just think he did a great job. And even that pick, that interception, I don't think it would have been an interception if Deontay Johnson didn't quit on that route.
All right, Matt, what did you see from Devlin start number 2?
Yeah, a lot of the same. And to expand on what Tunch said, I thought he did a really good job of putting these young, talented, emerging receivers in a position to show their talent. I mean, Washington comes to mind. I agree with you on the interception, too. That probably could have got broken up. This team's as good as any in the league at developing young receivers, and you're starting to see that, and the quarterback's putting them in a spot where they can succeed.
Labs, your take on Devlin Hodges yesterday?
Well, I mean, he was good enough to win with, as scouts say, and, at the quarterback position for a guy as inexperienced as he is, to me, that's a real compliment. I liked his decision-making, all except for one thing, and that's not the interception. It was his decision to throw the ball away at the end of the game instead of taking the sack because the Browns were out of timeout. You keep the clock running, run another 40 seconds off. At that point, I thought that your primary opponent was the clock. But I mean, that was a long way into the game, and he had done a lot of things by then. So I would say that he was very good, better than I expected, and I did like, as you guys kind of touched on, how he was giving his receivers an opportunity to make plays.
Right.
I mean, you got to be able to do that. They had the Steelers offense, I believe, had to go down the field some, Tunch, as you were alluding to. And, everything was good, except, as I said, for that one little clock management thing to call it something. I thought he had a very good game, and I fully expect him to start in Arizona because when the coin was flipped, I didn't know if this was going to be a one-week thing or not.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, and not necessarily because of poor performance, but just is he enough to win regularly in the NFL, or is he like something you take off the shelf every now and then just for a little spark for your team?
So he's not Elf on the Shelf. If that's
that's
not. He's not Elf on the Shelf.
I forgot it was December.
Yeah.
Me, Mr.
Christmas
Scrooge.
time.
Yeah.
It's Advent.
She knows about. Well,
Missi,
she's the one with the kids.
Missi and Labs and Matt. One of the things that I noticed as I was watching him warm up in pregame he had the biggest smile on his face. It wasn't like he was nervous. It wasn't like he was the stage was too big for him, and he was just smiling. And I heard Jalen Samuels say he's the calmest guy out there, and that's what you want in a quarterback. And I believe he's going to play with confidence. I think this game is going to launch him into a streak of good games. And I love the way he makes the quick decisions. I love the way he doesn't hold on to the ball. And I love the way that he's out there, and he just seems to make the right decision to tuck it and run, to roll out, and to hit the check down, to hit the flat pass.
I think his next hurdle is going to be how he reacts once video of him gets around the league a little more. Because, as you mentioned, if you were Steve Wilkes, you would have told your team to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that there's going to be more of that now.
Right.
Because people are going to be studying him. Coming up on the schedule, Buffalo, very good defensive team. The Ravens, I don't know if that game's going to mean anything to them.
Right.
But, again, these are the kinds of, I would say, defenses. The Ravens, elite defense. The Bills, one of the better defenses in the league this year. And how do these defensive coordinators attack him? And then how is he able to respond in game to some of the things he might be seeing for the first time? So, again, it's a process. The thing that I fear for him is that there's too much too soon in terms of adulation than at least expectation, because, I just don't know that what the fans currently think of him. He's ever going to be able to live up to.
Sure.
And it's not because he's lacking in anything, but it's just totally ridiculous. People think that this guy is, I don't know, a lot more than is reasonable to expect him to be at this point in his career.
You made a great point about the upcoming schedule, too. And the Cardinals don't present a huge problem. We saw what they did yesterday. But the Bills is an excellent defense. They, more than any defense in the league, are reluctant to bring an extra guy in the box.
Right.
So they're going to make you throw, against a heavy secondary. The Ravens are a massive challenge with all the man coverage they're going to play, and they throw so much at you. We'll really learn a lot over those two games.
Man, I think that when you throw man coverage at a young quarterback, he could see it better. He can see man coverage, and yesterday they were playing a lot of cover one with Red Wine as the free safety, and they were packing the box, and they were actually daring you to throw the ball. But I haven't seen Buffalo very much this year, and I don't know if they're going to play zone. But do you remember in Ben's rookie year when teams played him man, he ate them up. When teams played him zone, as the New England Patriots did here at the AFC Championship game, the first time they played him a lot of man coverage. They shifted to zone, and it's a little tougher to see the windows for a young quarterback in zone coverage as opposed to man coverage.
All right, one thing I liked after the game, Coach Tunlin was asked if he did anything differently this past week to get Devlin ready for his second start. Take a listen.
I wanted him to know that I had confidence in him, and I thought extra time and extra points of emphasis and more dialogue than normal would prove to him that I didn't. And so I was very conscious of my interactions with him. It was no more than normal because I wanted him to know that we had real confidence in him.
All right, I kind of like what Coach said there in terms of just keeping it normal, let him do his thing. You don't want to get too much into his head. But we do have to talk about Benny Snell football. 2 back-to-back games, especially coming off of an injury, helping the Steelers for the second straight game go over 100 yards with him there. You see his spinner mouthpiece. I'm sure you love that, Tunch. But
yeah.
I know you want to give some love to the O-line, but I just think, we did it on Chalk Talk when the Steelers were backed up at their half-yard line. Able to punch it through for 11. He's just one of those guys that does not give up, and I think also enjoys the game of football, like you said about Duck.
I think Benny, he's kind of like a ping pong ball. He's bouncing off of guys. He keeps his legs moving. He moves the pile. The offensive line did a lot of great adjustments when the Cleveland Browns shifted their defensive line. I show you on Chalk Talk how they were playing an even front. They shifted to the odd front, and that's when Benny had that 11-yard gain, big first down. That was probably one of the biggest plays of the game to that point. And one of the things that I noticed about Benny Snell is early in the season, he didn't hit the holes. He had a little trouble finding the holes. Now he's finding them. And his vision is a lot better than it was early in the season. And, I love the way he's playing. I love the physicality of his, and I love the air guitar.
I really thought that Benny Snell is giving the Steelers what they need at this position now, as James Washington is giving them what they need at that position now. I think that, there were some injuries at those two positions. You also had, the three different quarterbacks so far starting. And, the running backs and the wide receivers really needed to kind of step up and help whoever the quarterback was, especially after Ben was injured. And so, there was just a little bit too much of a revolving door kind of thing there for me. And I've really thought that both James Washington the last couple of weeks and Benny Snell the last couple of weeks, I won't say they've taken over the position, but I think they've become much more reliable for the quarterbacks. And both Duck and or if we see Mason anymore this season or not, you need that. And to me, that was because James Conner, that shoulder injury, that's a hard thing for a running back, I would imagine.
Remember, the needle is your friend.
Well, I don't know that I don't know. I don't know what kind of injury it is. I don't know. So without James Conner, or at least for the foreseeable future, he would be less than 100%, I would imagine, even if he plays in Arizona. Having Benny Snell and allowing him to assume or ascend to the number one running back role, I think is going to help this team.
There was a 2 or 3 week stretch there that I really thought this team was short a true NFL ball carrier. That if it's blocked for 5, you get 6 or 7. And I think Snell provides that. It also carries over to protection a little bit. Some of the guys they were playing with didn't know what they were doing. They were overmatched, and that's a huge component of it. I think he's improved a lot in that regard. And going back to college, workhorse running backs, there's a mentality to it. It's not just you're good enough to get 25 touches. It's a mentality of wanting the football, being tough in the fourth quarter, wearing people down. He has those traits.
Yeah. And, I don't want to ignore Jalen Samuels or Kareth White either, because Jalen Samuels, he is a slide and glide running back. But when he gets in the open, like when he gets in this flat, watch how fast he accelerates and how he outruns guys. And I've been very impressed with him. And on the Wildcat there, he's does a great job of running with power and with speed. But I also want to see Kareth White. I love that guy. He is so explosive. He can dodge raindrops, and he is. And the kid is. I think he's a 4.4, and I'm a big fan of his. I want to see him take the ball on the jet sweep.
But see, I think, real quick, sorry, I think that what Benny Snell is giving the team now allows them to use Jalen Samuels and Kareth White in the way you talked about. If you don't have Benny Snell, you're still looking for that guy, and then you're probably utilizing Jalen Samuels and Kareth White in a way that is not best for them and therefore best for the team.
Those two are complementary pieces.
Yes, yes.
All right, we have to give some love to the Steelers defense. We are going to do that up next when the Steelers Roundtable returns.
It's one of the best secondaries I've ever been a part of because we got communication. We got guys that are very smart, football smart, and are very capable of making plays. So I feel like I'm holding my side down, but everybody else is doing their thing in the back end.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Joe Hayden, of course, sealing the deal for the Steelers yesterday at Heinz Field. We have to talk about the Steelers' defense. Let me just read these stats for you before we get into this discussion. Over the last 10 games of this season so far, the Steelers rank first in the NFL in takeaways, Quarterback hits, passes defensed, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. They are only second, I'm saying that facetiously, in interceptions, sacks, and tied for third in defensive touchdowns. Sounds like we have a pretty good group going on here.
Absolutely. And, I always say when you're playing a 3-4 defense, your outside guys have to account for at least 20 sacks. And they're well on their way to that. I haven't seen this kind of pressure between Bud and TJ since Woodley and James Harrison, and it's great to watch. The first sack of the night or the afternoon was on that slap. Here it is on Baker Mayfield, and so Chris Hubbard was holding his hands low. And so TJ took advantage that he slapped the outside hand down and he got the edge and he finished them off. But one of the things that I saw was Javon was rushing the passer great. Bud missed 2 sacks. He got that one, but he missed a couple. But when he misses a couple, he funnels them into other guys. And so I love the way this team has been rushing the passer.
Matt, let me ask you this. Against the Cleveland Browns, the first time only 1 sack. That was TJ's yesterday 5. What did they do differently yesterday to make them so successful against Baker?
I more or less think the first one was kind of a blip on the radar. Yeah. Short week. I really think Thursday nights on the road are a really tough way of evaluating any team and shouldn't be part of the league, but it is, so such is life. I also think they were much more aware of Baker rolling to his right. He doesn't like rolling left. They kept him contained a little bit better, and there was nowhere for him to go.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
I'm sorry. TJ did a great job of staying up on the upper shoulder, his right shoulder of Baker. And that he had nowhere to roll to. And to Maddie's point, he doesn't like rolling to his left, but when he rolls to his right, he can throw the ball on the run. Yeah. He's probably the most accurate guy on the run that I've seen in a long time.
The difference in the pass rush for me was the number of carries Nick Chubb had in the respective games. In the first game in Cleveland, partially because of the turnovers, the Browns were able to just continue to hand the ball to Nick Chubb. What do you have, 24, 26 carries? Yeah. Yesterday, he only had 16. So they weren't able to just continually hand Nick Chubb the ball, which means then Baker had to drop back with it more often, where he has been sacked a bunch of times and thrown a bunch of interceptions. And so going into the game, one of the keys that Mike Tomlin explained to me was in terms of how he wanted his defense to be able to play yesterday as opposed to in Cleveland was they had to stop this guy right here and limit the number of times Cleveland felt comfortable in handing him the football. That was the first step along the way, I think, to what we saw yesterday.
All right, but I'm gonna jump on your math because Kareem Hunt had 7 carries, so that's 24 carries between the two of them. And
he had 6 or 7 carries in Cleveland too.
Yeah, and
so that's 33.
They played a lot of played a lot of split backs, but they gave the ball to Kareem Hunt more this week than they did 2 weeks ago.
They still didn't run the ball as many times.
Yeah,
total runs was 24. Nick Chubb had that many runs in Cleveland.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Indiana State.
We're not here for math. We're not here
the Fighting
for
Sycamores. We had 2,000-yard rushers, and one was from Central Catholic, Rip Warren. Did you ever hear of Rip Warren?
Yes.
You went to school with him, didn't you?
Yes, I am.
He was a great running back.
I'm older than you.
A 1,000-yard running back from Central.
Right, and
he was a great
1,000-yard running back in spite of the awful offensive line they had at Indiana State.
The center was pretty good. Vincent Allen, he and Vincent Allen.
With all respect to Rip, the 2 backs in Cleveland are pretty good too, and I think they did a pretty good job keeping them under wraps.
All right, we have much more to talk about here on the Steelers Roundtable, going off the AFC playoff pictures, a time change, and we're going to open our time capsule, so don't go anywhere. We'll return just after this.
I think we've trusted each other. When we get in situations where they're not always great, we say to ourselves, and I don't know if it's vocally all the time, but we never think we're out of it.
man. This time of year, forget the opponent. They're nameless gray faces. It's about you being able to execute your plan to a level that allows you to win games. So I want to keep the focus on our guys and what they did.
All right, time for a little Missy's Monday motivation. Shout out to producer Gerard for helping to put this together. But since we beat the Browns yesterday, the Steelers are somehow at 7-5. I don't think anybody here probably predicted that as soon as we heard the news of Ben Roethlisberger in that Seattle game. But in the previous 9 games, the Ravens have gone 8-1. The Steelers 7-2 with a mixture of Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges. The Patriots have gone 7-2, and then you see the Bills there, one of the opponents coming up for the Steelers at 6-3. So while sometimes, Labs, maybe it feels like the ceiling is falling, all is not right, we cannot move up, it is not as bad as maybe it sometimes appears.
Well, and to me, this season is completely different than any of the recent ones, certainly that I can remember, in that it just has a totally different feel to it. When the job that Mike Tomlin and the coaches are doing, just cobbling together, a roster for game day, just to find enough people to do the different things that you want to do, both offensively and defensively, because of all the injuries. It's a little bit more fun to watch, I think, than it is, because I think you have an opportunity to enjoy what they're doing, right, as opposed to the seasons where the Steelers would go into a game and you would expect 35 points based on what the offense was. So I really kind of I'm looking at this season a little differently, maybe appreciating it a little bit more, and it still makes me nervous. I still live in my fears, but it is a.
Well, don't change, Labs.
I can't.
Don't be as scared.
I can't.
Don't be as scared.
Well, let me show you guys the good news. Let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture as it sits here today. The Ravens moved into that 1 seed due to the New England Patriots losing last night on Sunday Night Football to the Houston Texans, and there the Steelers are with the 6 seed. They were kind of teetering in that wild card spot, but as it sits today, of course, the last quarter of football, the last 4 games still to be played, but all is not lost, Labs.
No, I don't think that it is. Tennessee does worry me, though. I was really hoping that the Colts were going to take care of business on Sunday, but they didn't. Vinatieri missed 2 more field goals. Tennessee is a pretty good team. Their coach, Mike Vrabel, made a heck of a move, in my opinion, benching the 2nd overall pick in a draft a couple of years ago and starting Ryan Tannehill, who is, I won't call him a been there, done that guy, but he's been a been there, cut guy. He's a journeyman now,
right.
And I would imagine that benching Marcus Mariota was not an easy thing to do. Maybe a little easier for a coach who didn't pick him, but gutsy move, and it's really paid dividends for the Titans, and that's the team that worries me in terms of catching the Steelers and knocking them out of that 6th spot.
Yeah, and Coach P's a great defensive coordinator, and he retired from Baltimore, and Vrabel persuaded him, because Vrabel had him in New England, and he said, "Man, you got to come, And I asked Coach Peace, I said, "So what made you come out?" He goes, "My grandkids said, who are we going to vote for? Who are we going to root for this year?" So he said, "Okay, I'm coming to Tennessee," and they've been playing. They've been running the ball well, and they've been playing good defensive football. One of the things that I want to address is what Coach Tomlin said. When he said, with all due respect to Coach Tomlin, when he said we just they're just gray faces. Well, if you're playing Terrell Suggs, that's not just a gray face. You're a little bit nervous. And if you're playing Jamie Collins on the other side, you're just a little bit nervous. And you have to be on your P's and Q's. For the coaching staff, I believe that's true. That they're going to put together a game plan that's going to win. And I have the utmost respect for Mike Tomlin. But if you've got a great player playing against you, you know who he is.
All right, shall we do the time capsules, gentlemen? Let's see here. Tunch. The Steelers won't give the game away.
Right.
Now, this was going into the Browns game. Let me preface so we don't get confused here.
Yeah, well, I felt, part of the keys to the game was don't turn the ball over. Don't, as Mike Tomlin said, don't kill us. And I thought between the running game and Duck's quick decisions, I love him because of those quick decisions. He made them last week in Cincinnati, and the ball came out quick, the ball came out on time, and the ball came out on target. And so I loved what he did, and he repeated that yesterday afternoon. And he threw 4 big throws downfield. And I'm a Duck Hodges fan.
All right, Matt, your prediction heading into yesterday. Benny Snell rushes for 100 yards.
Yeah, and we talked about him earlier. I love his demeanor. I thought he'd get a little bit higher percentage of the carries, but not that I'm complaining. He was certainly trending the right direction. And some of my logic when I made the prediction was no Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon's really banged up.
Yeah.
And I think that's an underreported aspect of this whole game. That defensive front for Cleveland and their secondary, they were on fumes. I mean, they were really depleted. And if this goes much longer, Benny would have got to 100.
And they were playing Sheldon Richardson at defensive end.
They're just out of guys.
He is so slow coming up. I mean, he's better at the 3 technique, and he's better at the 1 technique when he plays on the nose. But he's playing defensive end, and he's not going to get the edge on you.
No, they were out of guys.
I mean, and he plays high, he plays tall, and I thought Matty Filer did a great job, and so did Al when he played on both those guys.
All right, mine was that James Washington will continue to build off of last week. So I think
You just wrote that in the
him. Listen, this is not even my handwriting. If him and Devlin Hodges want to continue to go duck hunting and building that off-the-field relationship on Tuesdays, the players' day off, I'm all for it. I just think maybe it's confidence too for him. That's a guy that I think it was a little uncertain. Would he step up this year? They make so much about that jump for guys, and the quarterback changes, that doesn't make things easier. I know he played college with Mason, but I think that game in Cincinnati, it was the 3rd play that Devlin went in and something clicked, and they just kind of kept it rolling yesterday.
And how many times have we seen Washington in practice, in
Oh,
camp,
sure.
in preseason? You knew it was there.
Right.
I was shocked he lasted to the 2nd round and putting it together, maturing a little bit.
Hey, we need it right now. Labs, Baker will throw more interceptions than Duck.
tied 1-1. I just really thought that that the Steelers coaches, particularly Mike Tomlin, were going to be in Duck's head, not to kill us, as using Mike Tomlin's words, because really, to me, the assessment of the game in Cleveland was the turnovers killed the Steelers. 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and in the 4th quarter it was a 1-score game. And so, that to me really points to the significance of those and the impact they had on the outcome. And I just thought that going into this game, that was going to be the consistent message from the Steelers coaches to the players: do not turn it over. And beyond Devlin Hodges, you also saw him trying to rip the ball away from Benny Snell a lot.
Right.
And he had an iron grip
Ball
on
security.
it. Ball security. So, and then I also thought that, based on the emphasis on limiting the carries and the effectiveness of the Browns running game, Baker Mayfield, when he has a lot of opportunities, 2 things have happened throughout this season. He gets sacked, he throws interceptions.
He gets cocky.
So I just figured that those 2 things coming together like that would lead to the Steelers' defense, more of a takeaway unit anyway, would leave the Steelers with more interceptions than Devlin Hodges threw. But it ended up being 1-1.
I also think that Mike did not have to get into Devlin's head. I think Devlin understood. And I think, one of the things that Mike Tomlin said in his post-game press conference, he said, I wanted him to know that I had confidence in him. And, I think there is a...
You don't think anyone else talked to him?
Well,
the telephone game.
Yeah.
The head coach talks to the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator talks to the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're right.
All right, last but not least, in case if you missed it, Labs and Tunch's favorite news coming out of Sunday night, the Steelers' Week 15 matchup at Heinz Field with the Buffalo Bills has been flexed to a night game. So a 1 o'clock game, 1 o'clock game to Sunday Night Football, but at least it's not on the road. That's how I look at it.
Well, you know what, Missy, you softened my response. I was going to say I hate night games and I hate this, and but as Labs pointed out, we might have gotten flexed in Baltimore. And that's an away game, night game, and that's that puts you way behind.
Week 17.
Yeah.
Right, and if you are going to go into the playoffs, you might get a Saturday
Right.
playoff game, and that's a bad situation because the rule is explained to me by someone in the NFL is that when the schedule first comes out, the maximum number of night games you can have is 5.
Yeah.
So the Steelers had their 5. And then you can get flexed into one more regardless of when it is. And so looking at I've been eyeballing the last few games for about a month now, thinking which one is it going to be? Not is there going to be one? Which one is it going to be? And that Baltimore game to me just was sticking out like a sore thumb because it wasn't going to be the Jets. Arizona was already on the West Coast, and their record isn't very good. And so my preference, as you just mentioned, much rather have it at home and not the last week of the season because, as I just mentioned, that could really put you behind if you do get into the playoffs.
Right. It's a great point. It doesn't affect me much, but I think that's a great point about Baltimore.
You don't have to complain just because they do.
Right. Bills coming here is going to be a really difficult game, though. They're playing well. I didn't expect them to spank the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Maybe it gives them a little edge being here, late. Who knows?
All right. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the Steelers Roundtable. We'll see you guys next week.